But if you have not read it yet, this is your sign to do it. Hey nerdy ghouls, or should I say spookworms, because I guess this is officially going to be my first Spookworm Club video. And in this video, I'm going to be sharing my collection of spooky books, aka the list of books that I could not part with when I was doing my digital reading lifestyle cleanse, which you could check out right here if you're interested in watching. Before we get into today's video, I wanted to give a major thank you to today's sponsor, which is Pear Eyewear. My reading journey would definitely not be the same without Pear. As you can tell, Pear makes it possible for me to be reading in style, and if I'm being honest, I always love to match the vibe of like whatever I'm feeling, whatever I'm reading, whatever I'm diving into. So I wanted to share some of my favorite top frames from their past and current collections, starting off with these sparkle ones. I absolutely love this collection because they are not so sparkly that they're like overwhelming and in your face, but they're just there with that like subtle hint to make you feel a little glam. Since we're talking about spookworm vibes today, this is my absolute favorite top frame that ever came out during their Harvest collection back in November, because it has the cozy coffee mugs and fall colors, like it's just total vibes. And then we have this black tie-dye that I feel is just like such a nice subtle pattern to have. Like you could tell that there's a really cool spunky design on it, but it's not too crazy or overwhelming for a very subtle, nice like cash look. And then we have these spider webs from their Halloween collection, which are total Mandy Spooks vibes. So what I'm getting at here is you don't ever want to miss any of their collection drops, because I think they release 2 to 3 a month, and every time they release one, there is one that just totally matches a certain vibe or look that I really want, and I really appreciate that because it's so easy to change up your style in just a quick snap. So if you're interested in snagging your own stylish spooky pair, then you can save 15% off your first order with the code MandySpooks15. Okay, so I don't even know where to start because obviously I have a lot to say about a lot of books and I don't want this to be an hour-long video. So I'm gonna try to keep it concise, but I definitely have what I consider like a TBR keepers list, my absolute, this is why I love spooky reading list, and then like total like aesthetic, Instagram worthy vibes, I don't know. So let's start with my absolute must keep ones. This is a little out of the box and not what you would expect from me, but we have this first one called Superstitious. Here's why. It is so random, but I found it at the Black and Red store that I mentioned in the previous reading video I did, and it is by Julie Forsyth Batchelor and Claudia Delice. And it's really interesting because what it is it's just a collection of superstitions, their history, like why we believe that black cats crossing in front of you are bad luck and things like that. So I thought that was like really cool, and it's always fun to kind of just like, when I say a superstition, to be like, hey, wait, why do we say that? And I like go look it up. I never like sit down and read the whole thing in its entirety. Okay, and then next we have my favorite book probably to ever exist, because it's the entire reason that Spookworm Club was created and why I fell in love with reading again, and it is called Long Live the Pumpkin Queen. If you're watching this video, then you probably already know about it. But if you have not read it yet, this is your sign to do it. It doesn't matter what day of the year it is. I feel like a lot of people wanted to wait until like Halloween season to read it. And without any spoilers, there is no wrong time to read this book because it covers pretty much any season you can think of. And also, if you're a spooky ghoul like me, then obviously you could use the spooky Halloween vibes any time of the year. So if you have not, it's a must read. Like I could do an entire video about why I love this book, which we might do later, but for now, just know you need to add it to your cart. Okay, and then next we have this series by Erin Sterling, which is The X-Hex and The Kiss Curse. These two books were just like such total magical witchy vibes. Like if you're looking for a book that is like Hallmark but make it witchy and a little smutty, then this is what you want to go for. I'm not gonna lie, I personally did not love The X-Hex. I think I would have rated it like 3 to 3.5 bats. I felt like it lacked substance. This is not a full review, so I'm not gonna get into the details. However, when I read The Kiss Curse, this book was probably like the most exciting book that had me like smiling from like start to finish, and this was a 5 for me, so it made reading this one worth it, if that makes sense. And I would not recommend one without the other, so if you're gonna buy one or check one out at the library, I recommend getting both because they're just like a total vibe. And then we have Hocus Pocus and the all-new sequel. So look, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I know that this book, amongst like true readers, is not a hit. People absolutely loathe this book. But let me tell you something. This book is the entire reason that Mandy Spooks exists, because in 2019, I broke my ankle and I was non-weight bearing for 3 entire months on a second floor apartment, and I could not leave at all. I think I was able to leave once a week, and what I did that year, or those 3 months, was I decided to just like distract my mind with all the spooky Halloween things I could, despite the fact that it was like spring in the middle of the year, nowhere near Halloween. And this book was one of the first things that I treated myself to. And it just brought me so much joy and took me out of this depression that I was in because of what was happening in my life. And that is why I couldn't part with this book, because it just reminds me that this was the first step in living my spookiest, most authentic life. Okay, and then moving on to my TBR list, because this one has mostly a lot of things that mean a lot to me. So this first one was actually a gift from a nerdy ghoul, an OG nerdy ghoul. Lisa, thank you so much for sending it. It's Haunters of the Dusk, A Gathering of New England Ghosts from Edward Lodi. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I have not read this book because I'm afraid to. From my understanding, it is a collection of short ghost stories. Like, it looks like it's like 1 chapter per ghost story from the New England area, which actually sounds like what a lot of you would love. But as I have started to share with you all, I am not as into scary things as most people assume. So I'm afraid that if I read this, it's gonna scare me. And that is why I have not read it, but it also means a lot because it was from a nerdy ghoul. So I could not part with it. Next we have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, which was one of the books I purchased when I got Hocus Pocus as well. And the reason I got it is because, hello, like, I am the biggest fan of the Universal monsters, of the Bride of Frankenstein, of Frankenstein. Like, if you know me, you know, like, that is one of my very top like tiers of content and obsessions and passions. However, I feel like a total fraud because I have never read this book. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I attempted to read it during that summer, and the style of writing is just really difficult for me to get through. But now that I'm revisiting it, I think I'm gonna try listening to an audiobook while reading this to get through it, because I feel like I can't really consider myself a Frankenstein fan until I have gotten through this book. And then we have the Book of Halloween, The Origin and History of Halloween by Ruth Edna Kelly AM. This is actually Mr. Spooks' book. I have never read it, but I could not part with it because this was one of the very few books that he purchased during our Ghoulmates journey, and he did read it. And he said it was really awesome because it had tons of Halloween history, which is right up all of you nerdy ghouls' alleys. So I wanted to just share it with you guys because I'm sure a lot of you would love to pick it up. Okay, and next we have a very special book that I really want to know how many of you are going to actually understand like why this is even part of my universe. So if you know, I want you to comment down below before I even share the story. So it is Love Letters of Great Men, and this book was actually a gift from Mr. Spooks on our wedding morning. I don't know if you know, a lot of couples will give each other like a gift in the morning, and he got me this gift and he wrote a love letter from a great man on it, which I'm not going to read today because I don't want to cry. I've been crying a lot. And this book was actually a really big surprise to me because when we were watching Sex and the City, Carrie reads part of this book to Big, and I said, oh my God, that book sounds so romantic. And then Big ends up reading a quote from there as part of their wedding vows or during their wedding ceremony. And I just thought it was like such a full circle, like romantic moment. And so it was a really big surprise for me when Rudy got it for me and surprised me with it and wrote his own love letter in it. So that is why this book can never part from me ever, probably from any of them. This would be the one that I would keep. And every time that I'm feeling down or I just need like just a moment of love, I will skim through it and pick a random one to read. So I have not read it in its entirety, but I always go like back and forth throughout them. Oh, that was a lot of talking, I feel. And I feel like I went so fast because I was trying so hard not to make this really long for you guys. So I need a little sippy drink from my Spookworm mug. Okay, and next we have some really fun ones. So starting off with the first one, we have the unofficial Hocus Pocus cookbook. And this one is like, I don't even have to explain to you guys why I have it. In my head, I was like, I'm moving to Colorado. I'm gonna pick like a cozy day and try one of the recipes. Have I done that? No. Probably will for you ghouls at one of these days. But it's really cool because it has themed meals, as you would imagine. I think this one's Master's Devil's Food Cake. Dump out your chocolate sack, chocolate with pops, gingerbread witch's house. So there's just like some really cool recipes to try in here. And I promise one day I really want to try them. But until then, it's just a book that gives me total spooky vibes. And then next we have probably my favorite book from my childhood, which is Miss Nelson is Missing. And I think I didn't know it then, but when I liked this book as a kid, it meant something. It meant that I was gonna love something spooky one day. So if you have not read this book, it is a must read. Like, it is such a cute and clever and spooky book. Like, it's just total vibes. It's about a teacher that is fed up of her students misbehaving. So she goes on leave, and Miss Nelson, not Miss Nelson, I forgot her name. I should know her name. Miss Viola Swamp, how could I forget? Miss Viola Swamp, right here, shows up to be a substitute, and she is the meanest, most strict substitute ever, and the kids end up missing their teacher, Miss Nelson, and it's teaching them a lesson, obviously, but I just always love this book a lot. So when I saw it, I had to get it, and I never parted with it. And then next we have something that I have not been able to share about my many loves and interests in this universe, which is comic books. And not comic books because I'm lying. I can't say that I actually read a lot of comic books, but I do love superheroes. I love DC over Marvel, but I would take any of them. Like, I just love the entire vibe of them because they're fun and nerdy and bubbly at times. But my favorite superhero is Batgirl. And if you don't know anything about comic books and Batgirl's story, The Killing Joke is one of the most monumental moments, I think, in comic book history. I've been confirmed that by other comic nerds. But The Killing Joke is the story of how Batgirl eventually ends up becoming Oracle, which is not a very well-known superhero, but The Killing Joke is mostly about the Joker and Batman. However, Batgirl ends up being a very big part of it, but I don't want to spill the beans because that's the whole point of reading it. Okay, and next we have The Art of Pulp Horror, which is another one of those books that I pick up and like casually read certain sections of whenever I have time. It is just, do you ever just like open something and think like, oh, I wish I could just like dip my nose in this forever and dissect every single detail, but you know that no matter how many times you read it, you're gonna discover something new in it because it just has that much to take from. That's what this book is for me. There is just so much history and art in here, and it is just total vibes. So if you like horror specifically and reading, this would be a great book. And lastly, we have a book from Mr. Spooks' collection as well. However, I also love to pick it up on occasion, which is The Complete History of Friday the 13th. And this book is hefty. It is like a high school yearbook, except like 3 times the size, I feel. And it has so much cool Friday the 13th history in it. Like, it is endless. And this one is actually like mostly text compared to the one I just showed you that has a lot of like photos and art in it. So if you are a lover of Jason Voorhees or Friday the 13th, this is a must-have. So as you can tell, my interests are all over the place, and I would say that I love to have lots of spooky vibes and fun stuff around that makes me happy to kind of just like occasionally grab and go through for quick snippets. But when it comes to actually reading, as you all can tell, like this here is my sweet sauce, which has one thing in common. Can you tell what it is? Witches and magic and Halloween. And I think over the last couple of months, I have been struggling to find good reads because I'm also a very seasonal person, as I've mentioned before. So like, even though it was just Valentine's Day and now coming up on or around St. Patrick's Day, sorry, we're filming, but I have no idea when this video will be out. So I want like vibes of those seasons, but I still want like magic and Halloween and witches in that. So I have a hard time finding things that match like the season within my reading interests. So if you all have any recommendations for like specific times of the year, I would greatly appreciate them in the comments down below. But I would also love to know like what your top 3 keepers of all time are. Like, which 3 books can you absolutely never part with? And I mean, like, really think about it, because I know you all, and you all are hoarders when it comes to your books. Because I know, like, you confirmed it in the digital lifestyle reading video. Like, you guys can't part with your books, and I respect that. It was really hard to narrow down these, but if I were gonna pick my 3, I already told you it would be Love Letters to Men, or From Great Men, and then Long Live the Pumpkin Queen, because it changed my reading journey. And, oh no, this is hard. I think as much as I want to go with Hocus Pocus, I think I would go with The Killing Joke, because it also has a lot of history with my relationship with Mr. Spooks. But also, as I get deeper into this spooky lifestyle and becoming who I really am and loving everything, this book is important to keep me grounded and remind me that, like, despite how spooky I get, there's always gonna be a nerdy part of me. And I think that that's really important to remind myself about, because sometimes I go so hard into like one world and I forget, like, wait, I also love this, and I need to be a very well-rounded person to be happy. So that's my take on it. Love, pop culture, and magic. Love, life, and pop culture. So that's all I have for you ghouls. I hope that you really enjoyed this video. I had tons of fun nerding out over nerdy stuff, spooky stuff, love stuff with you. I can't wait to hear your book recommendations down below in the comments. And I would love to ask you, if you really enjoyed this video, to please like, comment, and subscribe. You have no idea how much it would help this channel, because I would love to get this channel up to 5,000 subscribers. Until next time, sending you ghouls and kisses. Bye.